Hello, everyone, and welcome to the December 7th meeting of the MCAH Legislative Action Committee. Nice to see you all on such a beautiful day. At least from my perspective, I'm looking out the window. I see the sun shining. Hope that you have the same where you are right now. We have a pretty full agenda again today. Glad to have you here to hear some updates and also some calls to action. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Laurel, who's going to do a little housekeeping as usual. Laurel.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Laurel. I wanted to just kind of orient some folks in case we have anyone new to our monthly call. We use GoToWebinar, which is a fairly easy to use platform, but a couple items for you all to know about. This is a webinar where you are all muted. We do like to encourage interaction as much as possible, so please feel free to use the chat box and send in questions or comments. If you are in a space where you don't have a lot of background noise and you want to contribute something a little lengthier, let us know in that box, or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you so you can go ahead and comment. And we'll have lots of opportunity throughout the call to do so. I also have two handouts on your kind of dashboard. It's under handouts. You can download today's presentation as a PDF. All of the content that we're going to discuss that has embedded links are available in that PDF, or if you are someone who receives our emails in advance with the agenda, they're also there. So we'll have a couple like call to action items that you can access through either of those options. And we'll also send out an email afterwards that you can use to access those and that material as well. This is also recorded, and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel and sending it out to everyone after today's call. So just be aware that that is something that is made available a little more publicly after we wrap things up. And I think that's all that I have. If you're having any trouble with audio issues, our best advice is always to hang up and call back in. If you're using your computer audio, you can try your phone audio. Often that's an internet issue and that's not anything we can control. But if you have other issues, please let us know. If you have questions as we go through the content, please let us know. And looking forward to engaging with all of you on our last Legislative Action Committee call of the year. So I'll go ahead and go on to our agenda, and our first item are federal updates. Eric, take it away.
Very good, thank you, Laurel. Okay, folks, a lot going on at the federal level, of course. Nothing more important than discussion surrounding the eviction moratorium. I know that affects the clients that you're working with very directly, and prospective clients. So we are keeping an eye on that. The CDC eviction moratorium, as you should be aware, will be expiring at the end of this month. There have been some discussions with the CDC, with staff at the CDC, about an extension on that. Right now, it's pretty apparent that there needs to be some external pressure that is given to help to reinforce the importance of a continuation of the eviction moratorium. And so we do have information, as you see on the screen. The NLIHC, National Low Income Housing Coalition, is sponsoring a sign-on letter. We would encourage your organization or your COC, your communities, to be thinking in terms of how you can join in on that sign-on letter. It's very important to be done very quickly if indeed you're interested in it. So please utilize the link on the agenda to be able to access that. We encourage you to participate. Again, what we're hearing is that the pressure needs to be put on not only CDC staff, but also members of Congress, because we are hearing some discussions, and I'll touch on this in the coronavirus relief package update, that there are some signs that that may be something pulled into a package. But at this point, we are focusing on the CDC as the mechanism for the eviction moratorium. So members of Congress also should be hearing that it's important as well. So being able to reach out to them is important. If you are so moved and or have contacts with your elected officials, members of Congress, we would encourage you to reach out to them as well about an eviction moratorium and the importance of having something in place, whether it be administratively through the CDC or whether or not it be through legislation through Congress. So with that, let's move on to the coronavirus relief package updates. You all should have been hearing that there are ups and downs with respect to a new relief package. Back in the summer, just to reacquaint you, in the summer the House passed the HEROES Act, which was a pretty significant amount of funding that would be allocated that would include direct resources for rental assistance. That was a no-go through the Senate. Mitch McConnell was not interested. There were discussions with Steve Mnuchin through the administration with Nancy Pelosi to try to come up with an alternative that seemed to get some traction, but then that petered out. Those discussions started in earnest again the last couple of weeks, looking at something that would be a more modest number than what was originally put out. The $2 trillion has come down to now a number of $908 billion. That comes through a problem solvers group, self-proclaimed problem solvers group from Congress who have put this forth. So now there are discussions with Senator Mitch McConnell and the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to come to an agreement. The indications now are that the White House is willing, meaning the president is willing to actually sign off on this with some potential changes, not in the number, but in some of the things that are covered in it. So there is hope now. Last week, it was a 50-50 chance. Now it looks as though some people have come to their senses and believe that there needs to be a relief package because of the implications of not passing one, and we all know what that would be. So the COVID emergency relief framework includes dollars for state, local, and tribal governments. Don't know the exact figure currently, but 160 billion was being put out in the past. So that relates to some of the services that we see provided, of course, with backfilling. The types of resources that have been available for our constituents have been on the chopping block or at risk of being on the chopping block. So being able to backfill some of the state and local government funding will help us in the long run. Also want to point out that the most important piece of it is the housing assistance, housing or rental assistance, $25 billion included in that $908 billion package. That is approximately a quarter of what has been asked for by our national partners, what we've been communicating out about $100 billion being necessary for us to address the oncoming tsunami that we see that will be taking place with respect to evictions and people having to leave their housing. So $25 billion is just a down payment. Please keep this in mind. This package is looking at basically kind of a 3 to 4 month window of being able to provide assistance, depending on which of the elements you're looking at. So this $25 billion, again, would be a down payment looking at potentially a package being pursued in the new year, in 2021, actually having another round of discussions about expanded relief and or stimulus. You can look at this package really as being a relief package. I think that it's being targeted as a relief package. It's not being discussed as a stimulus package to get more money into communities and into households, because it does not include the payments, the direct payments that we saw earlier on, which was the $1,200 per person. That is not part of this discussion. So that would be something potentially would be taken up along with any other stimulus type of funding. So let's see, I don't know if I'm missing anything. Do we have any specific questions that anybody may have about this package? I can tell you that it needs to take place very quickly. We know that the, this would also include the additional $300 from the federal government to be applied towards unemployment. And we know that there is that cliff coming up with the extension of that $300 elapsing. So that's an important part of what we're looking at with this package as well. Again, the action needs to be taken very quickly. The Senate is interested in doing something this week if they're going to take action. So knock on wood, we will see it go across the finish line. I'm sorry, were there any questions, Laurel? Do you see anything that's come in?
I don't see anything yet, but folks are sure I'm still digesting everything you said. And as I say that, we could get a question. 1 second. All right, so would you happen to know if Congress is planning to put in any language to allow COCs to get their existing HUD grants automatically renewed?
That I don't know. That's not a level of detail I've heard in our meetings with our national partners. That's not been something specifically that has been addressed. So some of the details have not been shared. It's more about the dollar amounts and what kind of targeted use for those dollars at this point. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. Sorry, I was going to add one more thing and forgot what that was. So if there are any other questions, feel free to send them along. In the meantime, let me just segue a little bit that the package that is being discussed, there is some potential that it will be tied to the omnibus spending bill. So I will segue into the budget. So the omnibus spending bill, so everyone knows omnibus basically is a more universal budget as opposed to individual budgets being put forth. They're aggregated. And that is the approach that is currently being taken. The House and the Senate have both put together their proposed budgets for departments, including HUD. And the good news is we're looking at some potential increases. That the House, as usual, has the highest numbers put forth. The Senate is normally a little bit more conservative in the numbers they put forth. Again, this year, a little bit more conservative than the House in most cases. But they, in just about every situation, are looking at an increase in funding over the current 2020 budget, which is important. That we're seeing some growth in the expected dollars that would be available to us, so that would cover continuations on vouchers as well as some new vouchers, etc. You can see the link that's provided to you in the agenda, which is a chart that's put together by the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which I think does a great job of laying out the HUD and USDA programs as the budgets have been put forth by the White House and the House and the Senate side by side, so you can see that. At this point, really, you're talking about having the House and the Senate try to come to agreement on numbers related to what they have put forth. So my guess is when you look at those columns, you're really going to be coming in at a number at or in between the House and the Senate numbers. Typically, you don't find a conversation that takes place where a compromise is beyond what the highest level is or below the lowest level that's being put forth by either chamber. So tenant-based rental assistance, we're looking at an increase of about 100 million, excuse me, about $1.1 billion. Public housing has an increase in capital funding, or we're anticipating that also in the operating fund. Homeless assistance grants, we're also looking at a pretty significant increase. If the House's version goes through currently, it's 2.77 billion, and the proposed budget is 3.4 billion, and the Senate is 2.9. Both are increases. We're hoping that that does come through because that is needed. Project-based rental assistance also, we're seeing some significant increases being proposed as well. So those are just a few of the highlights of the things that we typically are looking at in the budget that directly relate to the resources that you have available in communities to be able to provide services to our constituents. That budget does need to be pursued quickly as well. If you don't recall, there is a current continuing resolution which has allowed us to operate beyond the actual fiscal year, which is not unusual to have the continuing resolutions take place, because what we found is Congress does have less of an appetite of actually taking on the big issues and looking at a coherent and comprehensive annual budget, but have often kicked things down the road and just done continuing resolutions, which are for a period of months as opposed to an annual budget. I do not think that they will be pursuing, a short, very, very short-term continuing resolution. I think they'll want to have something a little bit more substantial. So they will need to take action on that because the funds will be running out here in December. So they do need to take action to continue governmental operations. Do we have any questions about the budget? I know
Not
it's the most exciting topic that anybody can ever experience, and so I know that you're waiting for it when we talk about it during these meetings. And I went through it quickly, but just kind of giving you the broad strokes of what's happening with it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions come in as folks digest some of that and as they go to the table that you referenced, Eric. And I do encourage people to do that. It's a lot easier to digest when you have the visual up. It's just a little big for us to fit on the screen easily. But as people digest that and think about it, feel free to send in questions at any time. Even if we've moved on, we can always circle back to this or answer them after the webinar.
Yeah, good. And I would just make one other comment here while I think of it. When we talk about a coronavirus relief package being a short-term um, uh, coverage, when there is a new administration, there is expected to be a much larger dialogue about continued relief or expanded relief as well as stimulus. So, pay attention to that. This is one piece, short term. There will be additional conversations taking place in 2021. And with that, I guess I am wrapped up with this section, unless other questions come in. Again, as Laurel said, feel free to toss them in at any point in time. We'll try to come back to them if you have anything that does strike you that you want to have us address. Otherwise, let's move on to the next part of our agenda, which will be the state updates. Laurel?
Yeah, I'm not going to let you get off that easily, actually, Eric. I have a question for you because it is a lot to kind of digest and there's a lot going on right now. Can you help us kind of prioritize here? If our folks have just a limited capacity, would you encourage them to focus on the eviction moratorium, the relief package? How can they be active right now in helping move some of these up the priority list for our elected officials?
Yeah, that's a good question. Number one, the sign-on letter is pretty important because there is no guarantee that there will be any inclusion of the eviction moratorium in any relief package. That's something that's new, that's being talked about now, that was not included in a previous conversation. So maybe there will be some action, maybe there won't. If there isn't, again, that then gets left up to a regulatory mechanism through the CDC. So it's really important for us to make sure that we're covering our bases with the CDC. So that sign-on letter is very important. Doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward, simple process for you to engage in. That's helpful. But if you do have connections with your members of Congress, you should be thinking about reaching out to them. Even if you don't have connections, contact their office and talk about the importance of some of the elements here and the cliff that we're facing with respect to eviction moratorium, with the loss potentially of the $300 in unemployment through federal funding, as well as the need for the housing assistance, the direct rental assistance that we know is going to be necessary moving forward. So communicating that is really an imperative. We need to keep the heat on so that the housing assistance does not fall by the wayside or get trimmed as these conversations continue. And there's a lot of trading that goes on when you look at these numbers that the House and the Senate do end up, they might say, okay, $908 billion is the number we're going to land on, and that's what we're going to work with. But then they do some horse trading, inside those individual line items that are being put forth. We need to put the pressure on, make sure that we don't lose anything in these conversations.
Thanks, Eric. That helps me. I'm hoping it helps others kind of figure out how to spend some of their extra energy that I'm sure they all have right now in trying to assist with us. So thank you. So we'll move on to state updates. It's the most wonderful time of the year, folks. It's lame duck season, which means there's just a little bit of time before our new legislative session starts, where everybody tries to do everything in Lansing and some crazy stuff can happen. So, rightfully so, in Lansing, our legislators, both in the Senate, our state Senate and our state House, are really focused on two key issues: COVID-19 and making sure that our elected officials are passing legislation that addresses and responds to the need within our communities, and then the election. And there's some very interesting things happening around the election here in Lansing that I'm not going to get into. But that is all just to say that with such high focus on two issues, it's being called a bit of a lame duck by those who are much more informed than I am about what is going to happen and how much is going to pass through. We also are not changing our administration or our Senate, so it's a little quieter than other lame ducks have been. But we are keeping our eye on a couple things that are moving and moving quite quickly. And want to let all of you know about it because there's some opportunities to get involved. So first off, we have talked about House Bill 4992 a couple times. This is the House bill that reinstates the tax credit for shelters and food banks. There's an accompanying bill that also addresses foundations. They are, I believe, tie-barred, and if not, they're at least moving together. But my focus on 4992 is to let all of you know that this is moving quite quickly. So it has passed committee. It is up for a second reading, and it may actually be taken up as early as tomorrow. And so we do support this, and I encourage all of you to go ahead and contact your state representative and let them know why this bill is so important for us. It would reinstate that tax write-off up to $100 or $200 for joint returns, which is something that was taken out a couple years back, and we know has affected the fund development capacity and ability of our shelters throughout the state and our food banks, of course. So we want to make sure that this is another resource, another tool that helps our providers bring in more funding so that they can do more with what they have and serve more folks, which we suspect is going to become even more important as we kind of see an increase or a potential increase of homelessness as a result of COVID-19. So again, might be taken up as early as tomorrow. Please reach out to your state representative and let them know that you support House Bill 4992 and tell them why they should support it as well. Another package of bills that focuses on mobile homes, House Bill 6003 to 6008, is also moving quite quickly. It is going to be taken up in committee tomorrow, Ways and Means in our House committee. And all of these bills are addressing issues regarding mobile home management. And the majority of them do introduce new ways to protect tenants. And so we are not the lead on this. I actually will be conferring with our partners over at the Center for Civil Justice on these bills. They are advocating and working with at least one of the sponsors on them to try and make sure that they are strong pieces of legislation that really do protect tenants. And so if you have folks who you are serving who have mobile homes or are potentially being evicted from mobile homes, and you're interested in learning more about this package of bills, please reach out to me. I don't know enough to be very informed and to give good guidance on what they do and how we can advocate for them, but I can definitely find out more and link folks to the experts here. So just reach out. You can use the chat box or the question box and let me know if you're interested, or you can send me an email after this call and we can talk more about that. There's also been a lot of activity around smart justice or criminal justice reform. And this is something that we saw earlier this year with clean slate legislation, which we did discuss on our last Legislative Action Committee call. But there are some accompanying bills that we're excited to see that are a result of the bipartisan Michigan Joint Task Force on Jail and Pretrial Incarceration. So this is a body that was doing a lot of great research throughout the year and put forward several recommendations that are now being taken up by our legislators. One of the items that we talked at length about in our last call was that the clean slate legislation did not include expungement for DUIs. And so House Bills 5029 and 6453, but specifically 6453, will address this a little bit more directly. And so it does allow for some expungement for first-time DUIs. And I know that that is something that our folks, our guests and clients do have some experience with and have some limitations around having that on their records. And so this is a piece of legislation that we're going to be following and that we hope will move forward. In addition, there is a package 5846 and 5852 that are House bills that address the suspension of driver's license for certain acts. And so this would eliminate that suspension. And there's quite a few different acts that are included there that would fall under this legislation. And so all of this is just going to make it a little bit easier for our folks who have had their driver's license suspended to get that back if if they fall under one of these eligible categories. And so I encourage you to look at that link and the analysis of that, and we'll keep you guys updated on how quickly some of these smart justice items move through committee and move through our House and then hopefully onto our Senate. There's quite a bit more with lame duck, but as I said, those are kind of the ones that we're keeping our eye on. If you are following something that you're interested in learning more about or that you think should be elevated in our Legislative Action Committee, do please let us know, and we will make sure to communicate that out to folks. In addition to lame duck, we're also following some things related to COVID-19. And so House Bill 4895 is part of a conversation happening around unemployment and the expansion of unemployment benefits as a result of the state of emergency, but also just beyond that as well. So currently, as you all know, statewide unemployment is 20 weeks. And so there are talks and there is pressure to expand that back to the 26 weeks that we had prior, and to also increase the benefits. House Bill 4895, if I remember my notes correctly, is the one that would expand it from $362 a week to $542 a week. And so obviously this is a bit of a partisan issue, and so we will see how that develops, but it is something that is being discussed within the legislature as it relates to COVID-19 in particular. As Eric mentioned earlier, we also are very concerned and are following closely the impact of the eviction moratorium and our eviction diversion program and rental assistance funding, and how when that ends at the end of the year, we are going to be seeing more people at risk of homelessness and evictions. And so though there is a lot of action happening at the congressional level that we are optimistic about, we also recognize that there is a clear role for our state legislature and administration to take to support these programs. So in particular, the eviction diversion program is funded by the Michigan Eviction Diversion Program, I should say, that's administered through MSHDA, is funded through CARES Act funding that runs out at the end of the year. The governor has asked for our legislature to come forward with $100 million, and our budget office has also asked for another $300 million to try and support additional resources for folks who are impacted by COVID-19. We are going to be stressing that rental assistance needs to be a priority within that consideration of supplemental budgets. So the link in the agenda does go to a letter that we have created that asks for $20 million of that allocation to be spent directly on rental assistance. And we are asking all of you to participate by signing that letter, and so that we can send it off to our elected officials and ask them to prioritize this. Because this conversation is moving quickly in Lansing and there are only a few weeks left to our legislative session, we're going to have a very tight turnaround on this. So I'm going to ask all of you, please take a look at this letter, read through it. If you agree and you think that this should be a priority as our Appropriations Committee considers a supplemental budget, then please sign on. I've linked to a form. It's just a quick Google form that allows you to sign on as an individual or as an organization. If you'd like to do both, you can go ahead and do both. And please then send it on to your network and try and spread this as far as you can. We're going to try and submit this Wednesday or Thursday of this week. So as I said, very quick turnaround. Please help us get this out as fast as we can. We're also going to be coordinating and trying to make sure that our populations, both our providers, the staff on the front lines, and our clients and guests, so those experiencing homelessness, are a priority when we receive the vaccine. And so we know from the federal level that there is kind of a hierarchy of those who shall receive it first, and those experiencing homelessness or working in shelters are on one of those priority lists. We just need to make sure that that continues when it gets down to the state level. And as we talk at the congressional level, that we're not losing that focus, that we're not letting folks forget that our people need to be a priority. I don't have a call to action on this yet, but I want to just kind of put that forward so people know that it's on the horizon. And there may be ways for you to participate in that prioritization conversation moving forward. I also want to just take a quick moment to address that there is going to be ongoing future need for both legislative at the state level and congressional action as we think about COVID-19 and how we need to get new resources and tools and funding into our communities. Even once we have the vaccine, even once our COVID-19 numbers start going down, we're going to see the impact of this for a long time to come. And so we are considering putting together a work group to discuss what those priorities are, what our communities truly need, short and long term, and how we can be advocating for that in our state and at the federal level. So again, on the agenda that you can download on the handouts or in the email that went out in advance of this call, there's a link for you to sign on. And at the moment, we're trying to understand what people have capacity for, what they're interested in. And so there's some questions about how you'd like to participate in that kind of work group. But we are hoping to convene fairly quickly here in the next 2 months so that we can start having those conversations and be really well informed about what all of you guys are seeing in your community and where those needs are. So as we develop that, as we learn more about what you all have capacity and interest in doing, then we'll be sending out more communications about how you can participate. And again, this is focused on legislative priorities. So we know that there are a lot of opportunities to give feedback about some of the more administrative things that are happening with some of our funding sources and ways to interact at that level. We're really going to be focusing with this work group on how we can engage with advocacy at the elected official level. So we want to make sure this group is representative, but still small enough that we can kind of take some direct action with it. So if you're interested, please consider signing on, letting us know, or you can send me an email as well. And you can bring this back to your networks as well. Ooh, I just spoke a lot. So let me pause. Eric, is there anything that you want to add or kind of talk about with state updates?
No, it's just that, we're all busy. We have a lot going on, particularly with COVID in the mix. But there are a lot of things happening here, just looking for your attention and the ability to share this with others that you think might be interested in getting engaged in it. Lame duck is that time where a lot of things will slip through unless we can pay attention and mount a counterattack, or that we also are making sure that we can get some things done in lame duck while there is an opportunity. So we don't want to miss this and let it slip away from us. So please be vigilant and help us out as much as you can along the way. And also, I just wanted to mention, I don't see any new questions that have come in for you, Laurel, by the way, in case you were curious.
I either put everybody to sleep or everybody's still processing.
Everybody they're taking notes. I know, extensive notes, because they're going to pass this information along to other people and they want to make sure they're coherent in their messaging.
Of course. If you do have questions, send them in at any point. We can always circle back and get to those. All right.
Always, you can reach out to us offline as well. It doesn't have to be during the course of this meeting. If anything comes to mind, just reach out to us.
Yes. So we are going to move on just to try and keep up with the time here. We want to take just a couple moments to talk about our Homes, Our Votes 2020, our election work. As a lot of you know, we did do voter registration and education work throughout the year. I have my amazing senior public policy intern, Haley Allgaier, on the call, and she's just going to take a couple minutes to discuss the work that we did and then how we're thinking about it moving forward, and of course, ask for your guys' input on something. So Haley, are you still with us?
Hi, yeah.
Hi, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what has gone on and where we're going with Our Homes, Our Votes?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name's Haley. Nice to meet some of you. I've been with Micah since January, so I helped work on a lot of this stuff this election season. So this election season, we did a fair amount of activities. We had some webinars with experts to talk about how agencies can get involved. We provided a lot of educational materials on voting. We funded 5 sites to help build up their programming. We built relationships with the Secretary of State, and we also launched our Peer Ambassador program. So all great things, but now post-election, we want to see what worked and what didn't. And so we developed a survey, which you can see on the screen there, through SurveyMonkey. And this is mostly to find out your experiences, your challenges, any resources you use, just a lot of your experiences with any voter registration work this election season. And this is just for us, by taking this, you're not committing to anything. We're not committing to anything, in the future. This is really just to find out what went on, what we can improve on in the future, and, things that we can do to, better ourselves in future elections. It's probably like 5 minutes long, really not long at all. We are just asking people in our Legislative Action Committee, feel free, if you know any agencies who did election work or want to do future election work, you could share it with them as well. That would be awesome. We are looking for a deadline by the end of the day Friday, but this is really based on how much responses that we get. So yeah, we're mostly just trying to find out some basic research on what went on and how we can improve upon it in the future. Hopefully we find out some really great information from folks. So thank you all for participating.
Thanks, Haley. And I'm going to take just a second. I think I've done this a couple of times in the past, but it deserves repeating to acknowledge Haley. And we also have our other intern, Kate, on the call, who just did fantastic work with our Homes, Our Votes 2020. And so thank you. They will be leaving us at the end of the semester, and I'm heartbroken. But my hope is that this survey that Haley has set up and that we will send out again after this call is a way for us to learn about how we can continue the great work. We think elections are really important, and if you have any doubt about that, I'm hoping that being active in some of our elected official engagement will showcase for you just how important the election piece of all of this is as well, because they allow us to build relationships with our candidates who then become elected officials, but they also help us empower the folks who are most impacted by all of the different programs that we advocate for to have a voice in the election process. And so it's really important that we understand where our communities are in terms of this work so that we can build programming that better suits what you are capable of and have interest in doing, and where you want to be for future elections with this work. So please do fill out the survey. Please do help kind of cap off of Haley's experience with us with a really robust response so that she can kind of dig into it and help us develop future programming. So thank you, Haley.
Yeah, thank you.
In terms of that elected official engagement, I do want to take just a couple minutes to talk about some stuff that we're going to be planning for next year, things that we're really excited about and that we're hoping to bring all of you into in a more direct way. So first off is a reminder that we did our candidate questionnaire. We have done this in prior election years with our state elected officials. So for this year, that was all of our state house candidates. But this is the first year that we also did it with our congressional candidates. We received fewer results than I would have liked, but hopefully the results that we received will inform us about how we can engage with candidates who both won and did not win their election. So the link is to our website where we have posted all of the different questionnaire responses that we received. If you see your elected official on there, I encourage you to look at their actual responses because there's some really interesting information in there about how they think about homelessness and housing insecurity and how they want to get involved in being a champion on these issues. In addition to that, we typically host a Homelessness 101 session for our legislators, targeting those new legislators every session. Again, this is just with our state legislators, not congressional. This year is going to look a little different. We typically rent a room in the House office building and we invite constituents and the elected officials to all sit together at a table and have a conversation. Can't quite do that this year. So we're planning on some virtual sessions and we're planning on doing that in a regional way. So using the 10 prosperity regions as a way to kind of limit the size of these sessions. So we're looking at January, February, maybe March, depending on how busy things get in the next year, and we're asking for volunteers. This is a way for all of you to help us coordinate and market these activities so that we can make sure that we get our electeds there. We can present information that is valuable to them in terms of understanding homelessness and to you in terms of what you want to be communicated to them, and so that we can get folks from the field to attend as well. So just as a reminder, here's the 10 prosperity regions. We're asking, especially in those regions where there are both COC and LPBs, we're asking for a volunteer from one of each to help us coordinate and market these events. We recognize that we probably won't get quite that many, but we're going to try and get as many people involved in planning this process as we can. Again, acknowledging that you guys all have limited capacity, we'll work with you to identify kind of what you're able and willing to do and how much time you have. So if you're interested, let me double check here. Nope, I don't have a form for you to fill out. If you're interested, just email me and let me know. You can also send us a note in the chat right now, and we'll follow up with you so that we can start getting something planned. But this is, again, just a really great way to build relationships with elected officials now. And those are relationships that can carry on into designing legislation, into calling on them to vote on things that are helpful or harmful to our folks. They're just really fantastic ways to get involved with the state legislative process. Eric, before I move on, anything that you'd like to add about any of that?
Laurel, there is a question going back to the survey
Yes.
as to whether or not it is targeted to LAC members or if it's open to everybody.
So as Haley said, we are just going to be sending it out to our LAC members, but we encourage you to send it out beyond as well. So you can share it with your network. You can send it directly to agencies that you know did election work. We're just going to be sending it by email to our Legislative Action Committee list. Hopefully that helps. Anything else, Eric? Eric, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay. So in the time that we have left, and we do want to save some spaces, we usually try to, for all of you to give updates about what's happening in your community. So this is that warning for you to start thinking about how you want to share some of that information. We'll get to that in just a few minutes, and we can either read from our chat and questions box, or we can unmute you. So start thinking now about what you might like to update the group about. But before that, we want to take just a couple minutes to talk about what is going to be happening in 2021 with our Legislative Action Committee. We usually try and take December as a time to kind of evaluate how things have gone, look forward, make some adjustments as necessary. So we are going to be saving some space in January to do that. We're going to have a longer session. We're going to change the date just slightly, so it's not the first Monday of the month as usual. We're going to try and do the 11th if we can get some of our potential presenters lined up for that date. So temporarily save the date for January 11th, but we'll send out a firm invitation soon for a chance to come together and talk a little bit more about what our priorities are for the next 2 years and how we can all work together to advocate for homelessness and housing insecurity solutions in the state. So in order for us to kind of prepare for that, I do have a couple quick questions that I'm going to ask all of you. I love doing polls because it's a good way for all of you to kind of get involved. So let me ask this question first. And this is asking a little bit more about how you all get involved or how you inform your network about the Legislative Action Committee. And can I just get a confirmation from Eric or Haley that you can see the poll on the screen?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Alive and well.
Perfect. So this will help us understand not just how you all call in and participate on these monthly calls, but how you make sure this information gets out beyond just you. So how are you informing, if at all, to the rest of your network? And here we're thinking primarily COC or LPB, but if there's other networks that you report out to or that you kind of share this information with, feel free to include that. I believe I set this up so you can do more than one. And I am seeing just a handful of you have selected something so far. So I'm going to give it another second and talk your ear off in the hopes that we get a couple more responses. We really do want to make sure that this information is getting out to enough folks that we have kind of an army of advocates willing and ready and informed when it comes time to take action. So we're hoping that all of you share that vision for the Legislative Action Committee and see a way that you can participate in getting that information out. All right, I see the response rate is slowing down a little bit. I'm going to give you about 5 more seconds to go ahead and respond, and then I'll close it and share. And then I do have one more poll question for everybody. All right, and so everybody should be seeing these results now. It looks like quite a few of you do a verbal report out, which is fantastic, and definitely gives me some feedback about how we can be sharing this information, because this is a lot to report out verbally if you don't have more tools to do so. It looks like some of you are doing written report outs. You forward some of our information. A small portion of you are actually assigned responsibility to attend this into report out, and that's great for us to know as well. So if you're one of those individuals who has kind of been assigned that responsibility, I'd love to chat with you about what that looks like and what the value is, because that's something that we're considering trying to build as well. So
And I would
thank you.
point out, Laurel, that about 40% did not respond. There may be a good portion of you who didn't participate in the poll who don't report this information to anyone in particular. That's okay. We're not judging you on that. But certainly, as Laurel is indicating, the ability to get this information out to others does broaden the network and the impact of the information that we're putting out there in the calls to action. So if you're not already doing something and you have the ability, or put it on your radar screen so that maybe you are able to pass this on in the future. We really encourage that. But if you don't and you can't, that's okay too. We still love you and we want you to keep coming to these meetings.
Yes, I should have said that. No judgment here, but thanks, Eric. And I realized I think I made an error with this. I'm going to give it a try. Let's see if this works. Again, trying to understand how you'd like to participate in LAC moving forward. So I attempted to set this up so you could pick multiple, but I think I may have messed up and you can only pick one. Can I get confirmation that it is live and on the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. So here, let us know which way you'd like to interact with LAC next year. If you like our current format, which is the first Monday of the month, we do an hour-long webinar. Occasionally, we'll send out emails. If you think there's value in doing a different way of connecting, so there's better options and opportunities for interaction. If you'd like to participate in work groups, and here we're thinking about kind of the COVID work group that I brought up earlier, but also there could be potential for other work groups that are focused on specific priorities. If you'd like to serve as a designated LAC ambassador, that's the title we're floating around. There may be a better one as we kind of move forward. Or if you think that there are additional educational opportunities where you'd like to learn more about our priorities or about how to be an advocate, I think I can't take the poll. Eric, or actually none of my panelists can do this to let me know if you can pick more than one. If you can only pick one, pick the one that resonates for you the most. Okay, yep, you can only pick one. I'm sorry, guys. That's my fault. I even spoke with Allison, my colleague, before this and said, no, I'll make sure that you can pick more than one. And then I messed it up. So apologies. Again, pick the one that resonates for you the most. We might follow up. We will follow up with some more specific ways to get this feedback moving forward. Thank you. Okay, looks like I'm going to give it 5 more seconds for people to. I got a nice try in the comments. Thanks, guys. It's a Monday. All right, let me go ahead and close this and share the results. All right, looks like most folks do prefer our current format, although there's some interest in changing to a different format for some better interaction. And then work groups got a decent amount of votes as well. So that is very helpful for me. Thank you, guys. As I said, I'll follow up with a better way of actually getting this information. So I appreciate it. Eric, anything? I see we've gotten a lot of comments. I assume lots of folks are just laughing at my inability to do a poll appropriately, but have any questions come in?
Yeah, there actually was a question that came in that you might be able to respond to, and that is there a way to create a PDF form of the email? And I think we're talking about the e-news that goes out. I have a very hard time sharing through MailChimp to my own listserv. Is there an alternative to help people to facilitate them sharing?
That is a good question. So I typically kind of have made the assumption that people share the full PowerPoint that has all the information, and that is a PDF. But that assumption probably is incorrect. So if folks, if this person does need the agenda on a separate, like 1-page PDF, email me. I'll send it out to you. I'll make sure that we make that for you, and we can figure out a way to do that moving forward as well. So thank you for kind of bringing that to my attention. Anything else, Eric?
Sorry, just scanning through them. No, just some comments, general comments. Appreciate work groups, et cetera, and laughing at you. So
Yeah, I'll take it. That's fair. All right, so now that everybody's laughed at me, hopefully my screen is being shared appropriately. As I kind of teased earlier, this is your chance to share anything that you want to share from your community. Send questions or raise your hand. If you're in a space that doesn't have a lot of background noise, we can unmute you and you can actually speak to the full group.
we do have an update that was in the questions section, came from Amanda Carlisle. Just a local update that the City of Ann Arbor's Affordable Housing and Services Millage passed on November 3rd. They're also looking to do some strategic planning for their next advocacy actions. Congratulations. Hoot, hoot.
Yes, that's fantastic news. I think we had a couple items on the ballot, community items that passed. So it was not a bad year for affordable housing in terms of our election. And Amanda, let me just kind of call out that you did an amazing job at the Homeless Summit discussing some of the ways that your community came together to advocate for that election item, that ballot item. Those are the kind of things that I would love if there's interest in having more educational opportunities. Those are the kind of topics I'd love to put forward for all of you so you can learn about how your community can do a ballot initiative, how you can identify ways to bring in funding such as through a millage or other ways to support affordable housing and homelessness services. So that's just an example of one of those educational opportunities that I think could be really valuable. And we already know someone who's fantastic at presenting on it and gets stuff done. So congrats, Amanda, and all of the partners who you worked with to get that across the finish line.
I echo those kudos. We do have a question from Joella. How do we access this meeting? Joella, I think I need a little clarification on your question. If you could just toss something into the question section, that would be helpful.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to assume one of two things. Either you're asking about the presentation itself, the PowerPoint. It is a PDF in the handout, so you can download that. Or if you're questioning the recording of the webinar, we put it on our YouTube channel. Not always as timely as I'd like, but I'll try to be a little bit more timely. If there's a different thing that you're thinking about, let us know. Yes.
She was interested in the recording of the meeting. Perfect. Thank you, Joella, for following up.
We also, in addition to our YouTube channel, we also have it on our website. All right, anything else coming in? Updates about other things that are happening in your community? Okay.
Not seeing any other questions.
Okay. Well, there's always the option as well to send it in to us by email. We're happy to blast that out, to celebrate things that are going really well, to talk about issues that you might be having, and kind of brainstorm about ways that we can advocate and support the work that's happening in your community. Either way, we're always really happy to hear about what's happening. And hopefully moving forward, we're going to be creating some slightly more interactive spaces for us to be able to do that. So I think, Eric, that is all from us. We typically list here our next meeting date, but it is to be determined. We will be doing our January one as a special session. And then we have a February one on the books with GoToWebinar, which is our current platform for this, but that may be changing. I will get that information out as soon as we can. But before we let everyone go to celebrate the end of the year, to call their members of Congress, to kind of get back to the daily grind of the work that you're doing, the amazing work you're doing in terms of COVID response in your communities. Eric, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I just want to thank you again and echo what Laurel is saying. You know, keep up the great work in your communities. There's a lot of hard stuff. It's hard work to begin with, but with COVID in the mix, it does make it even that much more difficult. So really appreciate and value everything that you're doing. Keep up the great work. Reach out to us as needed if you have questions about anything that we covered today. It is a lot to digest. We go through it relatively quickly to get it all into our 1 hour allotment of time, but we're happy to engage with you offline. So don't hesitate to use us as a resource.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone. Happy holidays, happy end of the year, and we'll all see you soon.
We'll see you
Bye.
in 2021. Take
Sounds
care
good.
all. Bye-bye.